Distinguished guest, esteemed speaker, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all of you to the Hong Kong International Cultural Summit 2026 parallel section at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. This is George Ma. I'm your host today. On behalf of the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, it's my pleasure to welcome all speakers and guests to be here, especially those of you who have traveled all the way to Hong Kong. Before we begin, a quick reminder, simultaneous interpretation is available in English, Cantonese, and Putonghua via the interpretation device already placed at your seat. In case you have any doubt, take the one on your left-hand side. Right? Okay. So to use the device, simply plug in the headset and then press the power button on the front and select your channel. Channel 1 for Putonghua, Channel 2 for Cantonese, Channel 3 for English. You can also adjust the volume at a comfortable level of your choice. If you require any assistance, please raise your hand. Our crew will be able to help you. And also a Q&A session will be held at the conclusion of the panel discussion. You are also invited to scan the QR code to submit your question. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the first panel discussion. Let's welcome on stage our moderator, Dr. Louis Ng, Museum Director of the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Dr. Ng has been the inaugural director of the Hong Kong Palace Museum since 2019. He's a seasoned museum professional, historian, and art administrator with over 30 years of experience in museum planning and management. Dr. Ng, over to you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome all of you to the Hong Kong Palace Museum and to the afternoon programs of the Hong Kong International Cultural Summit. Our first panel this afternoon focuses on knowing our audiences, shaping community-centered museums. We have three distinguished speakers who will explore how museums come to understand our audiences and translate this knowledge into inclusive, engaging experiences that reflect the diversity of the communities we serve. This knowledge also informs our exhibition planning, programming, marketing, and outreach. The first presentation of this panel will be given by Ms. Lynley Crosswell, CEO and Director of Museums Victoria from Australia. Since her appointment in 2017, he has spearheaded the strategic direction of one of the Australia's larger museum organizations, attracting more than 3 million visitors each year. Prior to her current role, Ms. Crosswell held significant leadership positions at the international divisions of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC Commercial, and ABC New Media and Digital Services. He is a sought-after keynote speaker on the evolving landscape of media, art, and science, particularly concerning the disruptive technologies, the curator sector, and digital business. Her extensive leadership in both cultural and media sectors underscores her profound impact on audience engagement and institutional growth. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Lynley Crosswell.
Thank you, Lewis, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the Hong Kong International Cultural Summit for this opportunity to join you all today. I'm honoured to be in conversation with Dr. Shaffer, Dr. Shimatani. Their institutions represent profoundly different contexts, yet we share a common conviction that communities must sit at the heart of what we do. So Museums Victoria is Australia's largest public museum organisation. Excuse me, I'm just going to move my screen up here so I can see it. And we care for more than 15 million items in the collection, spanning natural sciences, social history, First Peoples culture, and science and technology. We are 172 years old, and we welcome over 3 million visitors each year. We navigate significant cultural and geographic diversity, serving metropolitan Melbourne, one of the world's most genuinely multicultural cities, alongside a vast regional landscape. We are all operating today in a world that is placing real pressure on public institutions. Misinformation is pervasive. Artificial intelligence is reshaping how people access and assess knowledge. And trust in institutions, including museums, is under sustained strain. For us, this is not abstract. Our social licence, our right to operate with public support depends on whether communities believe in us, see themselves in us, and feel that the work we do connects to their lives. And that begins with something more demanding than data collection. It begins with truly understanding those communities, their lived realities, their aspirations, and the many ways they want to engage with us. When I joined Museums Victoria in 2017, we were already a strong organisation, but like many institutions, we spoke more readily about visitors than communities. We measured footfall rather than relationships. Shifting to community-centred thinking required structural change in how we gather evidence, how we interpret it, and critically, how we act on it. It required us to ask different questions of ourselves. I won't pretend that we've completed this journey, but we do have learnings worth sharing, and I offer them in that spirit. Our community-centred practice rests on 3 interdependent foundations: evidence, engagement, and relationships. So evidence informs the engagement, engagement builds relationships, and relationships deepen the authenticity of the evidence we gather, because communities share honest truths with institutions they trust. Let's begin with evidence as the foundation for how we work with our audiences and communities. So evidence means rigorous multi-method research. Not data for its own sake, but research that genuinely illuminates complexity. So we combine quantitative data with qualitative work, focus groups, ethnographic observation, community consultation, and a real-time survey program. Our audience segmentation is built on psychographics, understanding what makes a museum experience meaningful to each person. And this discipline keeps us from defaulting to assumptions. For example, Melbourne's Afghan community is not monolithic. It spans multiple generations, languages, religious traditions. Regional Victoria's relationships to science institutions differs markedly from audiences in metropolitan areas, and access is never simply physical. It's cultural, linguistic, economic, and psychological. And we also think carefully about where the museum experience happens. We deliver content through YouTube, cross-platform experience design, and on-demand programming. And on-site, we're watching how visitors are beginning to use AI to personalise their experience in real time. It's a fast-moving shift that I suspect we'll all be navigating together. So if evidence tells us who our communities are, then engagement is how we invite them in. Not as subjects of our interpretation, but as genuine partners in creation. So at our Immigration Museum, this has meant moving from telling other people's stories to building platforms where people tell their own, with authenticity and authority. Our Culture Makers program invited audiences from diverse Victorian communities to work as genuine co-creators, not consultants or advisors, people who fundamentally shape the outcomes. And this distinction matters. When community members have genuine agency over what is made, something more honest emerges. And now to relationships. If evidence is the foundation and engagement is the practice, then relationships are the connective tissue that makes everything sustainable. Through our regional engagement plan, we've built lasting connections across Victoria. Our museum in a van takes programs to 108 towns and reaches over 140,000 people annually. People who may never visit our metropolitan sites, but who are unambiguously part of our community. And these are not one-off exchanges. They are long-term investments built on mutual trust, and that trust changes the quality of everything that follows. The research, the co-design, the collections work. Now let me give you some examples. Research told us that families, particularly those from non-English speaking backgrounds and lower socioeconomic communities, felt science museums were just not for them. They perceived science as elite, inaccessible, and intimidating. And this wasn't a marginal finding, it pointed to something structural in how we'd designed our offer. So ScienceWorks undertook a radical redesign, programs to build science capital, families' confidence in engaging with STEM on their own terms, multilingual resources, educators who reflect our community's diversity, and hands-on experiences that reframe failure as discovery. Over time, annual visitation grew from 300,000 to 500,000, including communities who were previously underrepresented. And this happened because we changed the offer based on the evidence. Community consultations at the Immigration Museum revealed a consistent theme. Recent migrants were seeking more agency. They were tired of institutional interpretations of their stories, and they wanted to be the authors. So in 2024, our exhibition Reorient, Reclaiming Spaces, Redefining Stories. Forgive me, I've been slow in clicking on my slides. So here we have the Immigration Museum example, and in this example, Pia Johnson and others explored their sense of joy through how they were telling their own personal stories. Pia explored the museum's colonial history through self-portraiture, and in another project in Joy, 7 installations by Victorian artists were featured. A 1990s video store replica, a giant, joyful, soft toy, mythical birds, augmented reality, expressing personal joy through inventive forms. Both projects redistributed curatorial authority and gave migrant stories an authentic voice. Joy ran for 2 years and helped transform how we work at the Immigration Museum. Regional fieldwork revealed a consistent truth. Communities hold deep local knowledge but feel disconnected from Metropolitan Museum institutions. The impact and the implicit message of our traditional model was, bring your objects and stories to us and we'll decide what is significant. And we have worked to change that. And now we go out to the regions rather than expecting them to us. And that is the simple community-centred message around the regional programs. I'd like to speak particularly about our work with First Peoples because it represents perhaps the most significant test of authentic collaboration. Bunjalaka Aboriginal Cultural Centre was planned in genuine partnership with many First Peoples communities. And 6 years of consultation shaped its spaces, exhibitions, programs, and governance. The first People's Exhibition was guided from inception by the Yolenge Group, elders and community representatives whose name means knowledge in the Kulin language family. And their authority was substantive, not symbolic. And this result has informed how we're working in many other exhibitions following that one. So audience insight must flow across the whole organisation, informing curatorial decisions, collection strategy, programming and workforce development. Staff need genuine training in co-design and culturally responsive practice. And curators need to share to learn authority, and that's not a small ask. This work is labour-intensive and time-intensive and requires institutional patience. It also requires humility. Community research frequently reveals we're not as welcoming or trusted as we believe. The question is whether we have the will to change our strategy and redistribute our resources in response. We're all working in a moment of democratic fragility, polarisation, and eroding trust in civic institutions, and museums are among the last genuinely shared public spaces where diverse communities can encounter contested histories and engage with complex ideas. But we can only play that role if communities experience these spaces as theirs, where their knowledge is valued and they have genuine agency. So the questions we must ask change. Not how do we attract more visitors, but how do we serve the communities who sustain us, and how do we earn and retain their trust in ways that are meaningful and not tokenistic. These are real operational questions that should inform every decision, from exhibition development and staffing to resource allocation and governance. In conclusion, community-centred museums are built on 3 interconnected foundations: evidence, engagement, and relationships within our walls and far beyond. In practice, this commitment becomes visible in lived experience. Families in regional areas accessing programs they might never otherwise reach. Communities telling their own stories in their own voices. And this is what becomes possible when museums treat audience understanding not as a market exercise, but as a civic responsibility. And we create spaces where trust, agency, and genuine connection can flourish. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the conversations and the learning ahead.
Thank you for sharing, Ms. Crosswell. Please be seated. Coming up next is Dr. Sharon Shaffer, Principal of Early Learning in Museums, United States. A pioneer educator, author, and consultant, Dr. Shaffer is renowned for her groundbreaking work in early childhood museum education. As the founder, director of the Smithsonian's Lab School for Young Children in 1988, she developed a cutting-edge model in museum-based learning that is recognized nationally and internationally. Her research and practice focus on engaging young children in museums, advocating for their rights and cultural citizens. Her publications has been translated into multi-languages, and she is currently working on her 5th book, Young Children and the Art in Museums, Research, Theory, and Practice. She also serves as the series editor for Global Perspectives on Children in Museums, solidifying her global influence in this specialized field. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sharon Shaffer.
my slides. Well, welcome. I am so happy to be with you today. It is truly a privilege. I also want to thank our hosts for this opportunity to share my thoughts about young children in museums, certainly a passion. When I thought about this topic of knowing our audiences, it makes me think about who we serve, and even more so, who we do not serve. My interest, as you know, is about young children and their relationship to museums. I believe that when museums build relationships with younger children, we are broadening the scope of service to the community. So as you look at the images on the screen there of young children, what do you think? And what is their story? I think for us to find out what their story is, we have to take a look back in time. So I think most of us in museums know pretty well that historically museums have been for the wealthy, the scholarly, and the elite, but certainly not for children, at least not for many years. When I think about kind of the entry of children into the museum world, I think about the beginning of children's museums in 1899. Inspired by the work of William H. Goodyear, who was the curator at the Brooklyn Institute of Arts and Sciences, he recognized that young children learn differently. We all know that. And because of that, he felt that there should be institutions that looked at exactly their learning style. He gifted them a collection of imperfect objects to start the museum. At about the same time, there were some experimental exhibitions in traditional museums. And because of my work with the Smithsonian for nearly 25 years, I think so much about what Secretary Samuel P. Langley did by opening the children's room in the castle in 1901. You can tell by looking at that image on the right how different that exhibition looked compared to a typical exhibition of its time. It was definitely, the artworks, the objects were all at a level for children to see. And then, of course, there were no Latin labels. And besides that, he included things like an aquarium and live songbirds. So when we get to today and we think about children in museums, what is the status? Well, I want you to know, and I think most of us see, that children, or particularly older children, are visitors in most museums today. But this does differ across countries, and it differs with age groups. They're not universally accepted. So when I'm thinking about young children in museums, who am I thinking about? Well, I'm first of all talking about traditional museums, more so than children's museums, because we know that they're designed for children. But in traditional museums, I'm thinking about the entry of early elementary children, those 6 to 8-year-olds. They first came into museums, through school field trips and then through family visits when discovery rooms and hands-on spaces opened up in the mid-1960s and 70s in many places. And the second group are preschoolers. These are the 3 to 5-year-olds who have been in the museum a shorter time. They entered in the 1990s and 2000 with different places like the lab school at the Smithsonian that I ran and other early experiments in Europe and Australia. And then, of course, the newest group, babies and toddlers. Now, I know there's probably a lot of skepticism out there when you think, babies and toddlers in art museums? How could that possibly be? We're going to come back to that in just a minute. So what led to this change? There are a number of influencing factors that I thought I'd share with you. The first one is that museums made a strong commitment to diversity. And I know this through works like Excellence in Equity that was by the American Association of Museums in 1992, and ICOM, GEM, and other professional organizations also were advocates for serving more diverse populations. And then another important factor was the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. In that treaty, There were 54 articles on the rights of the child listed, including the right to cultural heritage. Another important factor was in brain research of the 1990s. At that time, we really began to learn about the significance of the early years of life, something that most of us as educators knew instinctively, but of course, hearing it in research was more important. And many of you may or may not know, but 85 to 90% of a brain development occurs in the first 3 to 5 years of life. And it is important time. And then, of course, a growing interest in enrichment, whether they were through more early childhood programs, models, influences such as the Reggio Emilia approach in Italy. But there were ways that we were really focusing on young children. And then, of course, new theories, a new sociology of childhood that emerged in Europe. We're now beginning to see children through a new lens. And because of that, there's a shift in attitudes, whether from social, economic, or political factors. And when there's acceptance of new beliefs, we are led then to new social norms. When I think about young visitors in museums and the community today, I think of it differently. The museum is truly now a place for children in many places, when it always wasn't. Children are welcomed in. There are enrichment opportunities that are different than they were before. And museums and school collaborations are more common now than ever before. So how is it that we engage young children in museums? Storytelling is one of the most important opportunities. For those of us in museums, I've always said, every object tells a story, whether it's a work of art or it's an artifact of some sort. But children learn through narrative and storytelling. And so we want to include that as a way of engagement. Here you see a young girl looking at cultural artifacts and learning about the story behind them. And whether it's in a history or cultural museum, a science center, or engaging with a work of art, children are all using their imagination through storytelling. And then, of course, participatory engagement. Children are active. We all know that children are active learners. So what does that look like in the museum? Hands-on experiences, things that are tactile, children very young exploring a fossil in the History Museum at the Smithsonian. Or creative art making in a studio where a child who actually spent time in an exhibition looking at the printmaking and being excited about that had an opportunity to then go into a studio and practice that printmaking. And of course, photography. I know there's probably some skepticism when it comes to photography in 3- and 4-year-olds, but there are wonderful case studies, and I included one in my second book about how young children can use photography to document their ideas and share stories. What do we need to be doing when we're working with children in museums? First and foremost, we need to be listening to children's voices, whether it's in the gallery and giving young children an opportunity to share their responses, their interpretations of what they see. They may be sharing those with other children. They may be sharing them with their parents and becoming a docent. On the right, you hear children's voices through children's boards in museums. A colleague of mine and friend in Switzerland is bringing children's boards into traditional museums in countries all over the world. Children are given an opportunity to be part of decision-making. And then, of course, thinking about museum design. We're not just designing for children, but we're designing by, with, and for children. And another way to listen to children's voices is in co-curation of exhibitions, where children are co-producers of knowledge. This is an example at the Clifford Still Museum in Denver, where children, I know you won't believe this, babies as young as 8 months old to 8 years are helping to co-create the exhibition. And if I had time, I'd explain how that works. But believe me, it's an amazing experience, and they have contributed. The newest audience, as I mentioned before, are babies and toddlers. So what are museum professionals thinking when you mention that? Most of them are thinking, babies, toddlers, inappropriate, they're noisy, they're touching things, they're distracting, they might be a danger. This is challenging social norms. But the research findings tell us something much more about how very young children, even babies, have a visual attraction to the art. And how do they explain what they're reacting to? Through their gaze, through gestures, through sound, how long they pay attention to something. Brain development comes about because of those early experiences, those sensory experiences. It actually helps change the architecture of the brain. And as I said before, 85 to 90% of brain's development occurs during the first 3 to 5 years of life. So what does this mean for museums? What are the implications for museum professionals? I think about 3 things. I think about attitudes, knowledge, and advocacy. First, with attitudes, you need to reflect on your personal attitudes. How open-minded are you to new ways of thinking, to thinking about children in a different way as part of an audience? I know that I've had to try to convince some of my other colleagues that preschoolers do have a place in museums, but that's not always the case in terms of how they think. And then knowledge. You need to build your knowledge. You need to read and study and observe children, understand their characteristics as learners. You need to be aware of new theories, talking about children as who they are and their agency now, not just about who they will be in the future. And you need to talk to colleagues and examine models and really look at quality, but most important, keep an open mind. You need to be an advocate for young children and be confident in your knowledge. You need to share that message with others, and it needs to be an institution-wide investment. A friend of mine always said it needs to be from the back room to the boardroom. And so why do we do what we do? We want to make a difference in the lives of young children. Children are society's most valuable members now and in the future, and they have a right to learn and share in their cultural heritage. With an open mind, museums can play a critical role in enriching the lives of their community's youngest members.
Thank you, Dr. Shaffer, and then thank you for sharing, and please be seated. And then our next speaker is Dr. Hiroyuki Shimatani, Executive Director of the Museum of the Imperial Collections, Sano Muro Shukokan from Japan. He has been the president of the National Institutes for Cultural Heritage since 2021. Under his leadership, he oversees conservation efforts and public engagement for Japan's cultural heritage. Dr. Shimatani began his career as a curator at the Tokyo National Museum, where he organized numerous acclaimed exhibitions focusing on Japanese and Chinese calligraphy, including masterpieces from the Palace Museum collections. He served as the executive director of the Kyushu National Museum from 2015 to 2023, further demonstrating his expertise spanning curatorial patterns, institutional leadership, and the strategic preservation of cultural assets. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shimatani.
I will speak in Japanese from now on. I'm delighted to be able to meet all of you from around the world today in Hong Kong, where the spring weather is in full swing. The Imperial Palace Sannomaru Shozokan Museum, where I serve as director, is currently undergoing expansion work. The facility will be fully completed in April and will have a full opening this autumn. In 2023, the operation of the Imperial Household Agency Sannomaru Shozokan Museum was transferred from the Imperial Household Agency to the National Institute for Cultural Heritage. First, let me briefly introduce the National Institute for Cultural Heritage of Japan. Currently, the National Institute for Cultural Heritage oversees 5 national museums, 2 research institutes for cultural properties, and 1 research center for intangible cultural heritage. The organization's headquarters houses both the Cultural Properties Utilization Center and the Cultural Property Disaster Prevention Center. The Cultural Properties Utilization Center engages in various activities to promote the borrowing of items from the National Museum's collection. The Cultural Properties Disaster Prevention Center in Japan, where natural disasters are frequent, we strive to build disaster prevention system for cultural properties, collect information, and support rescue activities for cultural properties during actual disasters. Prior to my current position, I spent almost 40 years at the Tokyo National Museum and the Kyushu National Museum, where I was involved in research, exhibition planning, and museum management related to cultural properties. At the Tokyo National Museum, with the motto beauty, relaxation, and learning, we strive to create a space where visitors could learn in an enjoyable way and spend their time at a leisurely pace. At the Tokyo National Museum, which has a large site and multiple buildings, we made efforts to create an environment where visitors can relax by setting up a rest area in places where they can enjoy views of the lush garden from inside the building, and by lining up many benches in the plaza in front of the main building. Regarding the garden, it used to be open to the public only for a limited time in the spring. Now it's open all year round, and food trucks and other attractions appear during the holiday season. In the past, for a long time, visitors had to go down to the basement to enter the museum's exhibition rooms, and the museum shop was also located in the basement. Later, the entrance was moved to the ground floor, but the museum shop remained in the basement. I felt the need to place the shop closer to the entrance so that more visitors could become familiar with cultural artifacts through museum goods. While many staff members were bewildered by the rather large-scale renovation plan, it took my time to change the mindset of the staff, and we were able to move the museum shop to the immediate left after entering the entrance. Next, I served as director of the Kyushu National Museum for about 9 years. The construction of the Kyushu National Museum in Fukuoka, Kyushu Island, was made possible by the donation of a portion of the sacred ground of the Zaifu Tenmangu Shrine, which receives about 10 million visitors annually. However, since the facility is accessed by an escalator from the prom garden adjacent to the shrine, it took time for visitors to the shrine to become aware of it. We needed to find ways to encourage people who had already visited the regular exhibition to come back again and again, even if they thought they didn't need to go again after seeing the special exhibitions. We frequently change the exhibits and hold various events. The Kyushu National Museum's exhibition focuses on the historical connection between Japan and various parts of Asia to convey the strong ties between Japanese and Asian cultures to visitors. We have trained a volunteer team to provide viewing support within the museum and have also formed a group called the Association for Loving the Kyushu National Museum. This group has attempted to create opportunities to share a love for the Kyushu National Museum outside the museum as well, through activities such as planting trees around the museum and participation in local festivals. The Imperial Palace Sannomaru Shozokan Museum, where I currently serve as director, opened in 1993 within the East Garden of the Imperial Palace. In 1989, His Majesty the Emperor Emeritus and Empress Kojun donated to the nation calligraphy, paintings, crafts, and historical materials that had been passed down through generations of the imperial family. Subsequently, other members of the imperial family also donated art and crafts items that they own. Our museum is the one and only center that preserves and manages these works and introduces the relationship between the imperial family and culture through research and public display. The building, which will have its grand opening in the fall this year, will have storage and exhibition rooms that are 4 times and 8 times larger than before. This will not only allow for safe maintenance and management, but will also enable visitors to see more cultural artifacts related to the imperial family in better condition.
The origins of our collections are diverse. Of about 6,200 works, about 10% are calligraphic works, paintings, and furnishings that have been passed down through generations from the imperial family and the related princely families since the time when the Kyoto was still the capital of Japan. Under 30% of the works of art, craft present to the imperial family from all over Japan since the Meiji era. And about 20% are works purchased by the imperial family from exhibitions held in modern times, and about 5% were produced at the request of the imperial family. The remaining 35% are works of art and craft received as gifts. And in the course of the goodwill with foreign countries and items that convey the lifestyles and culture of the imperial family. From November 2023 to May last year, our museum planned exhibitions and actively conducted educational outreach programs in a portion of our newly constructed building. The curator in charge of the exhibitions communicated with visitors by carefully explaining the background of the works and their relationship to the imperial family. We also conducted gallery talks in English, Chinese, and Korean, striving to convey the significance of the imperial family collection more broadly and clearly. Furthermore, many works of Japanese art are very fragile and sensitive to light, temperature, and humidity. To preserve the conditions of such works for masterpieces with a limited exhibition period, we use the latest technology from a private company to produce high-definition replicas that are virtually indistinguishable from their replicas. Our museum is located within the East Garden of the Imperial Palace, which is open to everyone. It's about a 15-minute walk from Tokyo Station. Because it's located so close to the Imperial Palace, it tends to be perceived as unapproachable by local communities. In order to let more people know that our museum welcomes everyone, sufficient publicity is necessary. To date, we have placed advertisement at Nara Airport, Tokyo Station, and other stations at the nearest stations to raise awareness. We're also making efforts to reach younger generations through Instagram. In the future, while maintaining the dignity of the facility that conveys the culture of the imperial family, Japanese arts and craft, we would like to make it more approachable. When you visit Japan, what is one artwork you most want to see at a museum? Museum experts may have their own themes of interest, but many general tourists seem to want to see ukiyo-e print. Unfortunately, our museum does not house any masterpieces of ukiyo-e. However, we do have many works of art that were created before the emergence of ukiyo-e and have left their mark on Japanese history. Among them are national treasures and important cultural properties that are featured in Japanese textbook. Japanese people who learned about our collection through school lessons can experience the deep sort of emotions, seeing the real things. To convey this emotion to visitors from all over the world, we'll continue our efforts to allow more people to enjoy the charm. The Imperial Palace San no Maru Shozokan Museum will have its grand opening this autumn. We sincerely look forward to seeing you in Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shimatani. Please be seated. Now, as we move on to our discussion section, please allow our crew to quickly set the scene. To remind all of you who are interested in submitting a question, please scan the QR code displayed on the screen and submit your question. If we have time to do so, our moderator will select a few questions from the floor and ask our esteemed speaker to address the question. Now, let's quickly, without further ado, may we now invite our session moderator, Dr. Louis Ng, to come onto the stage.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, now please join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers back on the stage for our discussion and Q&A, please. I think that our time control is excellent. I think we'll have 5 more minutes. I think for our panel discussion until around that we have a half an hour. That's great. So we have heard their inspiring presentations, and I would like to continue with a deeper conversation on today's theme. Okay, and I would like to have some individual questions. For our distinguished speaker. And lady first. And I would like to ask the first question for Lynley, okay? And I have the fortune to visit your wonderful esteemed museum last month. And then see your wonderful galleries, and also everything there are excellent. So, and then I learned a lot from you and from your museum. And I was particularly, impressed, with your science and natural history gallery, where you use a lot of, multimedia presentation. And this is a question, about the technologies. You also mentioned in your presentation that watch visitors how to use AI, during their visit, how to personalize their visits. Nowadays, we talk a lot about the digital technologies, immersive technologies, and also the AI intelligence, the artificial intelligence, how this technology, apply in the museum world. also, the real idea how I think the museum, curator or director, I think should look at the AI, the technologies, and how we use technology in understanding and building and extending our audience. Lynley?
Thank you, Lewis. There's a lot in all of that.
Yes, yes.
Question. I think I might break it down into 3 points and just start with an observation, really, that digital technology, interactive, immersive, it's ubiquitous across our experiences and exhibitions now. I think the most important thing, though, is that we use this technology to enhance the storytelling, the narrative, to enrich it. And always remember not to let the technology take over and be the story. So when we're working to utilize technology, and we do try and utilize the latest technologies available to us that we can afford and that are relevant, but we always try and make sure that it doesn't take over, because in this world where things are artificial and fake, we have the real thing, right? And we heard this morning in the plenary session about live exhibits and people coming together. It's just so meaningful and becoming increasingly important. And I'll make a couple of observations about AI. Look, we are increasingly using AI to help us in terms of sorting data, analysing, interpreting, and preparing reporting for us to help us understand what's happening with audiences. But I think the real challenge for us is not how we use it, how are audiences and communities using us to consider us and interpret us? Often, even if they think they're just Googling a question, what should I see at the Hong Kong Palace Museum today? Well, AI is informing the journey. I did it before, Lewis. And I said, what should I see at the Hong Kong Palace Museum? Well, instantly it had an analysis of the galleries. This was just ChatGPT. And then it said, if you've only got 2 to 3 hours, do this, this, and this. And we're spending all of this time trying to understand communities and guide their experience, invest in marketing and so on. Really understanding how AI is shaping how they view us is a really big challenge and important question.
Sharon, I think can you share with us on these questions whether the AI or digital technology can be used for education, the program? I think the advantage is the personalized, that I think the individual experience. What do you think? I think technologies can be used in designing a children program or how to facilitate their visit to the gallery. Is there any idea on this, technology and education?
It's such an interesting question, and in fact, as was mentioned, I'm an editor for Routledge for a particular series, Global Perspectives on Children and Museums, and one of my authors just put in a proposal to write about AI in museums with connecting with children, and there's so much going on. I mean, the way in which children think and see the world includes AI in a way that it doesn't for those of us as adults. And I think it's really an opportunity to learn about, by listening to children, think about how AI is impacting their lives. I think that's the starting point more than me saying, this is how I think we should use AI, because I think that what's happening is that sometimes we're checking a box to say, oh, we do this. We have programs for young children. May not be good quality. We are using AI. It may not be using it well. So I think we need to listen to children and see how AI is informing their life experiences, and then use that and apply it in a meaningful, relevant way in our exhibition design and in the interactives and those types of experiences. And I'm not sure I actually answered your question, but I think it has to go through listening to children.
Yeah. The application of AI covering many aspects, collection management, conservation, exhibition, display, interpretation, and most important is about on education. Hopefully, I think that opportunity to share with you. By the way, you may not know that Sharon is our good friend. before the grand opening of the Hong Kong Palace Museum. We opened in 2022, but in 2020, I remember the day, November, we have invited Dr. Shaffer to give a talk. At that time, you're still in the United States. I think that we have an online training program on a very interesting topic. I still remember the power of objects, new ways of engaging students in museum. I think that's very inspiring. And then your lectures, I think at that time was well attended.
Thank you.
And then actually, I think that we also scheduled another meeting by my curator and educator with Sharon, how we can, improve our work. There's a question about you that the Hong Kong Palace Museum is a museum of antiquities. Mm-hmm. Traditional art. I think that's about imperial court, live art. If we invite some, the early elementary student of 6 or 7, invite them to visit the museum gallery, it's rather difficult, for them to understand, the content, the knowledge. How can we make the visit inspiring, thought-evoking, and fostering, intellectual and maybe personal, well-being? Do you have any idea, any quick idea, what the Hong Kong Palace Museum can do? You mentioned a little bit, about aptitude, about knowledge, what do you think that we can do, to enhance our work?
Okay, this one's easy for me, actually, but I think that from a curatorial standpoint, there's always this purpose behind what story you want to tell through the exhibition, through the objects, and how you want to tell it. And it's all based on this research. What I'd like to say is that when young children, and they can be younger than 6 or 7, they can be 4, they can be 3, but it's really about how you make the experience relevant to them. It might be different than the intention of the curator, because that's all about specific content. And what you really want to do is inspire children to connect in a meaningful way with what they see. And so children understand things like they know past, because every child knows, well, I already went on vacation, or it was my birthday, and it happened in the past. We use that same logic to say that there are things that happened in the past from long ago, and we're going to see some of those things, and then allowing children to interpret and react to and respond to what they see. But it has to be relevant. They aren't going to get all the history. They're not going to get all that right now, and they don't need to. You want them to come back and want to return and see it again. Each time they return and look and think and talk about something, they will learn something new, and their curiosities will be what's important. They'll want to come back and learn more. So to me, it's easy to find ways to make ideas relevant. I did some work at the Palace Museum, the Forbidden City, training educators about how to use the objects there, the antiquities, and how you can help children relate to them. So there are many, many ways to do it, but you have to think, you have to shift how you think about what that exhibition is about, and it's going to be different for an adult than it is for a child, and that's okay, because they're still learning.
I think that the keywords, relevant and also connect, I think is quite important. I think I would like to add that sometimes the curator, make the show and then ask the educator, for education program. I think at the beginning, I think the educator and the museum curator should work together.
Yes.
How best the exhibition can be interpreted, presented to the diverse audiences.
Absolutely.
Okay, I look forward. I think that you have a meeting with our education team tomorrow, this afternoon or tomorrow.
Our meeting Wednesday.
Wednesday. Then I think that a lot of work to do. Yeah, the talk. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, my good friend, I think that Dr. Shimatani, I think we are friends. We met every year in different cities, in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Hong Kong. And then I look forward, I think, to the grand opening of your new Imperial Museum of Imperial Collections, there in early November. Am I right? Around this day. So there's a question, I think, that do you have any plan to promote international partnerships or cultural exchange program? And then, as I know that you are very active and energetic, I think that in attending many international symposiums. So then will you travel your collections and to, I think, to museum beyond Japan, or host any travel exhibitions, I think, that on imperial art and culture from other countries, including, maybe China, Korean, Europe, I think, that to your museum to extend your international audiences?
Well, I would like to answer your question. Before we get to reach this stage, actually, Imperial Household Agency hosted some exhibitions. That is Smithsonian and the other. Well, we also have an exhibit of the Imperial Collection. I think it was in 1997 or so. In the National Gallery in Washington, well, there is very popular in Japan. We had a Jack Chu exhibition, and actually the record number of people attended this exhibition. And also in Paris, France, we have a Jack Chu exhibition as well. It was also very popular. So there was 3 overseas exhibitions while it was managed by the Imperial Household Agency. Well, at the moment, we do not have any exhibition overseas, but then from May, from last year, our museum was closed. So during those periods, we made use of such period that Sandomar Shosokan collection was exhibited in other museums overseas. But then, for this full open in the coming fall, I hope that we can expand. But what currently I am making effort is that, well, there was a symposium in Beijing Palace Museum, and before that in Shanghai. And today we are having a meeting in Hong Kong. So what we would like to do is that the royal collection from overseas to be brought to Japan, so that from the countries which is the imperial system, or they have a emperor or empress, then we would like to enter into MOU so that we can exchange our treasures or royal collections. In the past, there was other way of thinking. The Taipei Palace Museum had a collection exhibition in Tokyo and Kyushu. And in return for that, we also had an exhibition from the National Museum of Tokyo, and the Kyushu cooperated and then exhibited what we had in Taiwan. So I think we can still, going forward, collaborate with other museums so that we can bring our collection overseas. So I think, yes, we are always thinking of collaborating with other countries. So going forward, we really want Japanese people to see overseas collections.
Thank you very much. I think I also look forward, to strengthening, the partnership among all palace museums in the world. Okay, I have a common question to all three speakers. I think that is about also international visitors. Now the world has increasing interconnected, and then museums has performed an important role in promoting cultural tourism and attracting domestic and also international visitors. How can we better cater to wide range of audiences? That we have domestic visitors, local visitors, we have people from the region, we have people from all of the world. Actually, I posed the question, with AI. The AI give me the answer. I don't know whether it's good. Museum cater to diverse audiences by implementing inclusive, accessible, and various programming that goes beyond one-size-fits-all models. Am I feeling right? Key strategies include curating sensory-friendly hours, offering multi-language resources, providing interactive multi-media exhibits for all ages, and ensuring physical accessibility, fostering a welcoming space for everyone. But I don't certify this answer, that I would like to turn this answer, to human being and also to our distinguished speakers. What do you think, in your museum or in your experience, how to balance the need from global, international, tourist, visitor, and also our local communities? Lynley? I think Melbourne is also an international, city.
Yeah, it's fun to ask AI what it thinks, isn't it? But just remembering, of course, that it's instantly trawling what everyone thinks and presenting that back. But look, I think it's important to remember that we are not one-dimensional, one-place institutions, and that we have the opportunity always to utilise a multi-layered and multi-channel approach when we're thinking about our various communities. So the more we understand our communities, the more adept we become at offering a layered and nuanced experience. So whether it's a major blockbuster exhibition, such as the wonderful Egyptian exhibition you have on here now, or something that's more niche, like a little exhibition about what manifests joy in different cultures, the more we can understand our audiences, then we can utilise the exhibition space itself, the programming that we put around it, the events that we put around it, the education initiatives, the guides, the unique experiences, and then what we offer outside of our sites, whether it's taking our physical experiences in a van out for us, or whether it's what we put online, what we make available via social media. We have multiple ways of reaching that diverse audience, those diverse audience communities, and you cannot achieve everything necessarily in one way, in one experience. And the more we understand that, I think the more adept we become. And also just remembering that this whole notion of co-curation becomes increasingly important, particularly for diverse communities, and the fact that they need to feel that this is a place they belong and they can relate to, no matter where they come from. And it's a big challenge, but I think it's one we see many examples of where museums today are really doing that very, very well.
Thank you. Sharon, what's your view on this question?
I'm actually going to start where you ended, and that is, how are people welcomed into your museum? And it doesn't matter who they are or where they're from. How do you create that sense of welcome and belonging that Lynley mentioned? Because when they feel welcome and included and respected for who they are and what they bring in terms of their own insights and thoughts into your museum, that's the basis for a positive experience. Are they having opportunities to react to and respond to exhibitions? Are there places for participation, even if it's leaving Post-it notes at the end of an exhibition or making choices as the Joy exhibition that she talked about, making choices that respect what they're thinking. So I would say that for me, that's the most important thing. You want them to feel included, you want them to feel welcome, you want them to feel a part of what's going on. And that's the best thing I think you can do.
Making choices, I think it's very important. Okay, how about Dr.
To increase the visitors, there are many ways, I believe. Well, when you talk about the Children's Museum, there was an old artifact, and there are different old things. I believe the museum in the future should incorporate all these aspects. I'm specialized in calligraphy. So when you look at the calligraphy, the curfew style and the different style, the styles changes depending on the year. So the form or how the museum is to be made, I think it can change. You don't have to be quiet all the time. I think that you need a lot of feedback. In concrete terms, there are many experiments being done in China too. In Japan, we managed a museum by charging entrance fee. And the finance ministry is always pressing us to make ourselves more, to make more money, financially reliable, independent. But my idea is to invite all the students, all the university students, and to the smaller one for free entrance, or let's say those under 20 or 22, free to enter the museums, so that they can enjoy, they can have fun at the museum. I think that's a new approach. I think that approach is appropriate. Of course, what about the financing? Well, they might tell something, but over 70, they may have to pay a higher price. But anyway, we want the museum to be a place for the visitor to enjoy. Japanese people tend to treat a museum as a place where they learn, they study. But I want to emphasize the fun part of the museum. And it's not necessarily true that the more people come, the better. Well, there are different exhibitions, like Ashra, where over 30,000 people came to visit. Well, we also create an environment where CO2 level is right for such a huge number of visitors. So sometimes we have to allow the people to book first, maybe leaving some, let's say, the room for foreign visitors or visitors from other areas. That's all from me.
Dr. Shimatani. I have received, I think, some questions from the floor, but most of the questions I think we are covered in our discussion, including digital technology, AI, and also how to strike a balance between local and international audiences. There's one question I think is very meaningful. I know there will be some young curators, museum professionals attending this session. What advice will you give to young museum professionals who are passionate about building community-centered institutions? Who are the most senior? I think Dr. Shimatani.
Well, young people has passion, but then they do not have experience, so they may fail. But then I think you have to really try. And then I think the experienced one has to really help these young people. But then for the young people, don't be afraid of failure. You have to keep going on. And then through the failure, you may learn a new planning or a new way of doing things. So I think things changes in line with the changes in the society. And so I think, yes, we really have to welcome changes.
Oh, I think, and it's not only young curators and young museum professionals, it's all of us really. I think we can just watch and observe more and ask more questions. Why do you think this? Or what are you enjoying most about this? Or what's your favourite object? And I think this is one of the beautiful things about working where we do, of course, is that we get the opportunity to learn something every day. And I think we learn most from audiences and communities when we take the time to ask them and observe them. Yeah.
Thank you. Sharon?
I think about being able to take a risk and thinking about why you're doing what you're doing. We're doing what we're doing because there's something we want to share with someone else, but it's really about the other person and not us. And I think about William H. Goodyear with the Children's Museum, recognizing how children learn and why we needed to do something differently, or the Secretary of the Smithsonian, when he created the Children's Room, it was because he wanted to serve children in a way that they weren't being served. So thinking about what it is you do and why you do it, and then finding a way to make that connection. It may not be perfect when you start out, but it really is a path that you can take. And I think it's important to remember that.
Thank you, very inspiring. Okay, I think George is asking me to end this session. I think, George, hand it to you.
Thank you once again for our speakers and moderator. Let's put our hand together for them. May we now invite our guest to go back onto stage and take a seat. We will now take a short break. And then the next section shall resume at 4:20. Now, you may also now enjoy some refreshment outside the auditorium. For the audio devices, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And another warm welcome to those of you who are joining us online. Once again, this is George Ma. I'm your host today. Before we begin, we would like to take a big group photo with our speakers, moderator, and esteemed guest. May we now invite Mr. Liu Kong, Chairman of the Hong Kong Palace Museum Board. Ms. Lynley Crosswell, Chief Executive Officer and Director, Museum Victoria. Dr. Chu Xiaofeng, Director, Shanghai Museum, Shanghai 博物馆馆长苏晓波博士。Dr. Barnes Ebert, General Director, Dresden State Art Collections. Dr. Sharon Shaffer, Principal Early Learning in Museums. Mr. Manuel Rabaté, Chief Executive and Director, Carinata Museum of Art. Dr. Shimatani Hiroyuki, Executive Director, Museum of the Imperial Collection, Sennomura, Suzukan. And finally, the moderators from the two panels, Mr. Lo Wei, Executive Deputy Director, the Palace Museum, 故宮博物院羅偉常務副院長, and Dr. Louis Ng, Museum Directors of the Hong Kong Palace Museum. All right, so let's look at our photographer in the middle. Would the guests come closer to the left, one step to the left, and look at the camera in the middle? To the right. All right. All right. And also our media friends at the back. Up at the back. All right, okay. So thank you so much. Thank you all of you. Please be seated. 请到台下就坐。Now, before we begin, a quick few reminder and announcement. Now, simultaneous interpretation into English, Cantonese, and Putonghua is available via the interpretation headset. That, if you have not taken one, please raise your hand, and our crew will be able to help you. To use the device, once again, simply plug in the headset and switch on through the power button in the middle. Channel 1 for Putonghua, Channel 2 for Cantonese, Channel 3 for English. A Q&A sessions will be held at the conclusion of the panel discussion. You are invited to scan the QR codes here to submit your questions. We will show the QR code nearer the time of the panel discussion. Now, we have also a special announcement for our on-site audience about our specifically designed cultural salon that will take place right after this panel discussion tonight. Now, as a side program of this summit, this special session will be moderated by Dr. Louis Ng, directors of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, and joined by two esteemed guest speakers, Director Ji Yunfei of the Zhejiang Provincial Museum, who is also Vice President of the Chinese Museum Association, and also Professor Jockey, directors of the Art Museum of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Now, they will discuss the topic of new opportunity for cultural and museum sector under the National 15-5-year plan. Now, this special section will be conducted in Putonghua with simultaneous interpretation into English. You're all welcome to stay and explore a deeper conversation. Now, may we invite our second panel's moderator, Mr. Lo Wei, Executive Deputy Directors of the Palace Museum onto stage. 现在有请第二节专题讨论的主持人，故宫博物院罗伟常务副院长，罗院长，谢谢。
Distinguished guests, scholars, good afternoon. Welcome to our meeting, and let's kick off our panel discussion 2, Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Museums. We always talk that the new museums nowadays have already surpassed the original concept. And it's about the cultural relics and the artworks preservation. It also carries the functions of an innovation and a community-based education. And the new museums will provide better education to the visitors. So it raises higher requirement to the new museums. And today we are very privileged to invite 3 important speakers. First of all, I'd like to introduce the first speaker. He's the director of the Shanghai Museum. And Dr. Chu Xiaofeng is an AhD in history, curator, and a Shanghai leading talent, and a licensed national archaeological excavation team leader. And Chu was appointed the director of the Shanghai Museum in 2022. He oversees the museum's operation from management and exhibition planning to international collaborations. He has been leading major projects such as the Shanghai Museum East and the Yangtze River Estuary No. 2 shipwreck salvage and the preservation project, and also very important exhibitions, and for example, the ancient Shu civilization. And he's a very important people in the museum industry. Let's invite Dr. Chu. Dear colleagues, old and new friends, good afternoon. I'm very happy to meet with you at the West Kowloon Culture and for the 3rd consecutive year for the ICS. Every time I come to Hong Kong discussing cultural heritage and innovation with you is a particularly enjoyable exchange of ideas. And this year is no exception. I'm here with the Shanghai Museum's new experience from the past year, and I would like to share with you how museums can continuously stimulate innovation while upholding the tradition, create more beauty, thought, and wave the future of museums through development. And the theme of our panel discussion is an entrepreneurship and innovation in museums. I think those are the 2 key words. So I'd like to talk about the entrepreneurship first. And first of all, it's about the innovation in the space. And we have already shared about our plan in the Shanghai Museum. It's a 3+ complex, and including the Shanghai Museum of People's Square and the Shanghai Museum East and the Shanghai Museum North. And with the 15th five-year plan, the Shanghai Museum will further launch the 2.0 version of this complex. And this will become the Greater Museum Complex 2.0 version, and upgrading this to a 5+X, in addition to the original People's Square. And we will also have the West Museum and the South Museum. And in 2025, the Shanghai Museum received the audience of over 7 million. And this fully demonstrates the upgrade of space and hardware is crucial for museums. When we only had the People's Square Museum and branch, our peak annual visitor count was only 2.2 million. And with the completion of our branch, we surpassed 7 million visitors. And with 5+X layout in the future, the total floor area will exceed about 300,000 square meters, and we expect to welcome over 10 million visitors. And this will be completed in 2020, and this will be completed soon, and will open soon. And our museums aim to be a top-tier museum of Asian Chinese art. And we plan to complete a renovation by the end of next year, during which the museum will be closed for this renovation, and we will comprehensively upgrade its hardware and facilities, and striving to establish China's first museum dedicated to the regular display of world civilization. And this month, we are delighted to learn that this project has been included in China's 15th five-year plan for major cultural development projects. And the Shanghai Museum North is located on the Huangpu River in Yangpu District, positioned as a world-class archaeological museum. And this is a brand new positioning. And this year, we will launch an international design bidding for the museum building. In the future, we will have a new approach for this museum, creating new type of a museum that transforms from a visiting type to a participating and interaction type. In the future, we will also have the Shanghai Museum West. And we are also thinking about what the the Museum West will do. Actually, through research, we have positioned it as Jiangnan culture and intangible cultural heritages of China. And we want to build a comprehensive museum here. And another one is Shanghai Museum South, which is also a new branch of our new Shanghai Museum. And we plan to select the site, which is also located along the Huangpu River and in our Xuhui river side. And this position of this museum is on the technology and the collection, which will integrate the two major functions of the Shanghai Museum's original centralized warehouse and our technology protection center. So from 3+X to 5+X, it sounds both exciting and a little crazy, but we think what has increased is not only the area of the museum, but also enhances the connection between the Shanghai Museum and our city and the ability to serve the public. And there's a development pattern of multiple museums. and each museum carries a unique function and positioning of the museum. And we hope to provide our audiences with different and diversified services. Therefore, the Shanghai Museum is gradually building a new pattern that covers a wider range of people and connects more life scenarios. And the museum is not only a place to display cultural relics and heritage, but also an important platform connecting the urban cultural community. So I believe innovation has no bounds. And I visit Hong Kong every year, and then maybe next year I visit Hong Kong, and this will upgrade to 7+X. Everything is possible. And second innovation is the experience innovation, and we will create a new scenario of a one-stop cultural and tourism experience with high-quality supply. With the continuous changes and upgrades in the public's consumption patterns, a large exhibition is not just a single cultural project, but also an important event in the cultural life of the city. For example, the ancient Egyptian civilization exhibition that ended last year attracted over 2.77 million visitors and who bought tickets to visit this special exhibition. So we have been thinking about how to promote the connection between these exhibitions and the cities. So in recent years, the Shanghai Museum has been actively promoting through culture, tourism, sports, and exhibitions, and to create this kind of a synergy. And we hope to let the culture influence of the museum extend from the exhibition to every corner of the city. For example, we have the one-stop culture journey. And during the ancient Egyptian exhibition, we worked with many important business districts like Nanjing Road and Huaihai Road. And with the exhibition tickets, people can enjoy discounts on shopping, dining, free parking, and so on. And we also opened a creative pop-up store on Huaihai Road. And we collaborated with F1 race tickets and the tennis master cups. And also, there are different diversified experience that connects the city. Yesterday, when I arrived in Hong Kong, many colleagues asked me, what will you do after the Egyptian exhibition? In fact, the Shanghai Museum has planned 2 years in advance about the ancient civilization of the Americas. And we called it On Top of the World Tree. And this exhibition showcases the entire ancient American civilization. It includes not only the civilization of Central America, but also those of South America. And we can say that this is a once-in-lifetime exhibition. And we have more cooperation models. And will engage in more diverse and large-scale cooperation with different business forms, bringing more new partners to create an experiencing of a cultural tourism integration. And through such activities, we hope to reach more communities, allowing the public to share the high-quality cultural resources. I can't review the details today, but I hope by the end of June this year, the museum will officially open in Shanghai, and sincerely welcome all of you to experience this new super exhibition. The third innovation is a new ecosystem fostering a connected cultural landscape. In the process of contemporary urban culture development, the sustainable development of museums not only relies on our own collections and exhibitions, but also relies on an open, diverse, and collaborative urban cultural ecosystem. Therefore, I think an important aspect is the sponsorship and the social support from enterprises. In the international museum community, corporate sponsorship is already very common, but for many museums in China, a regular mechanism has not yet been formed. In recent years, the Shanghai Museum has had quite a lot of cooperation with the social organizations such as China Eastern Airlines and also Bright Dairy, which have long-term named for special exhibition hall. And we have also launched the Shanghai Museum-themed play with the China Eastern Airlines, a wide-body aircraft that is believed to be the first flying museum across the world. And another is the cargo plane named after the Shanghai Museum, a large Boeing 777. There is also cross-border cooperation, which can attract a new audience to the museum. And there are many topics at this forum, like how to attract young people. I think cross-border cooperation creates such opportunities for us. For example, when we held the dialogue with Leonardo da Vinci exhibition in 2024, and we collaborated with Italian top supercar brand Pagani. This is one of this car was placed in the lobby of the museum.
Another thing is we allow pets to come to the museum. We have an event called Pet Friendly Museum Events, and we attracted pet owners and younger audiences to visit us. And also, the most important thing is cultural clusters and collaboration. At the East Hall, other than us, we also have Technology Museum as well as Science Park. It's very similar to the setting of West Kowloon Cultural District. So cluster creates a very convenient way for our citizens to experience art. Nowadays, the world is becoming more complex and becoming more diverse. I think the value of museum is growing stronger, especially when we talk about digitalization, artificial intelligence. It creates a very blurred line between the real life and the virtual world. AI could deceive us, but museum, its role is growing ever stronger. That reminds us, museum is a place where we connect with history, where we connect with our inner self. So we need to create memory, and while opening up, we also need to give new life to the museum. And in the future, I also look forward to seeing more collaboration between Shanghai Museum and Western Kowloon District, as well as other international museums. Through exchange of ideas, I hope art and culture could be taken to the next level amid this very uncertain time. Lastly, I would like to promote the latest exhibition at Shanghai Museum. We have an exhibition called the British Literature's exhibition. I thought it's a very niche exhibition. However, it attracted a large crowd. So I would like to quote J.K. Rowling to end my sharing. We do not need magic to change the world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chu. You are the person of the year. And you see, you have so many things in the pipeline. The Asian Egypt show is still on, and you also have the next exciting thing. We're very much looking forward to see that. And nextly, may we invite Dr. Bert Apper from Germany. I think he is no stranger. In 2008 and 2009, we already have the Loan exhibition. And you will know this is a very key event in terms of the cultural integration. Mr. Aber has been the Director General for the Staatliche Kunstmuseum Dresden since May the 2025, and it has a very whole collection in terms of art archive. And from 2007 to 2013, he served as academic advisor to the Director General and the Senior Officer for International Relations. And he has also began his career at the National Museum in Berlin in 2005, curating the exhibition Circles Fair Cosmo. And he also spearheaded a lot of international collaborations. His work contributed to European Union-led collaborations with national museums in China and other parts of the world. May we now invite Dr. Aber to the stage.
你们好。
Good afternoon. My name is Aber.
First of all, please let me express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this summit. Bringing together so many different cultural institutions is really exceptional, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you. In my position as CEO or Director General of an association with about 20 museums, collections, institutions, and archives in Dresden, Leipzig, Chemnitz, and Herrnhut, all cities located in the eastern part of Germany, I approached the topic from the perspective of my general vision for our institution, a future-proof museum association. An institution that, despite its long history and tradition, is considered to be up to date, and that proves its position as benchmark for others. Located at several sites, most of which are world famous, carefully reconstructed historical buildings, we carefully present the treasures of cultural heritage. The major tourist attraction are the Green Vault, the historical treasure chamber of the Residence Castle, and the Old Masters Picture Gallery located at the so-called Zwinger. There, you will also find one of the world's most renowned porcelain collections that was mainly assembled by King August the Strong, who admitted that he was mad about porcelain, collecting more than 29,000 objects. Still today, it is the largest East Asian porcelain collection outside of Asia. Following the roots of August the Strong, who established an international network, it is still one of our core objectives to strengthen and extend our network of partners around the world. The historical roots of our institutions are much older than the era of King August the Strong, who reigned in the 18th century. The starting point of the electoral collection of the Saxon court was around 1560. Today, about 475 years later, several million objects are preserved in our museums, ranging from the Middle Ages to the present day. And the holdings still continue to grow through donations and acquisitions. The groundstone of the Residence Castle was laid around 800 years ago. And in April, we will open 3 newly restored rooms on the banquet floor, which will conclude the tour through the castle. In doing so, we continue to create bridges between the historical environment, dating back to the Middle Ages, the reconstruction and atmosphere of the former electors, and the needs of a modern museum. You see, in contrast to the development of the West Cultural District, we're sometimes bound to the established and grown separations of collections and organizational structures, as well as the challenge to deal with historical sites. One of the challenges we face as a museum association is to build an interconnection between the historical environment and the objects we store. How do we keep such a huge and historical site vibrant? In the last decades, museums were primarily defined by the obligation and mission to educate people. Visitors came with a desire to learn, and museums responded with programs designed to offer knowledge. At our institution, we understand our educational mission in broader terms. Rather than focusing primarily on the knowledge transfer, it is our task to engage diverse visitor groups throughout artworks and storytelling. In the future, we will focus even more on addressing specific visitor groups, including guests from East and Southeast Asia. Learning remains central, but it should be embedded in experiences that engage curiosity and emotion. The heart of this approach are the objects of our collections and the research conducted on and around them on excellent standards. This continues to provide the foundation for everything we do. Instead of speaking of the past, a time that many people, especially our young audiences, can no longer relate to, it is my ambition to take visitors back to the time when the artworks were created in a more broader sense. We have to ensure that the objects presented become embedded in its historical context. When people encounter an object not only as a historical artifact, but as part of a compelling narrative, curiosity is sparked and the feeling of connection grows. Just think about the fact that a lot of the so-called old masters were quite radical in their artistic expression by the time of creating their artworks. This approach makes centuries-old works tangible and gives visitors the opportunity to become part of the life of the artist, like a time traveler. In this way, we are able to attract the younger audiences as customers, clients, guests who would normally not find the old masters gallery appealing. Our aim is that this younger audience will understand and internationalize our leading idea: all art has been contemporary. Let me focus on the aspect of entrepreneurship in the museums. In the cultural sector, this does not necessarily mean commercialization in the usual sense. We see our main benefactors more as partners than as sponsors. Let me give you an example. The worldwide renowned watchmaker and luxury brand A. Lange & Söhne, for example, has a strong interest in supporting the Royal Cabinet of Mathematical and Physical Instruments, a museum of clocks and measuring instruments. We share a deep appreciation for the highest standards of craftsmanship and a commitment to art and culture. Both institutions are dedicated to spreading Saxonian precision and a passion for excellence across the world. The value generated through these connections is not purely economic. It is intellectual, cultural, and social. Interdisciplinary collaborations are important for our approach of forward-thinking museums. Museums cannot operate as isolated institutions. They increasingly function as spaces that connect different fields of expertise. This requires spaces for dialogue and exchange. In Saxony, we are therefore actively expanding our network also besides the very important traditional museums and academic partners. This includes collaborations with institutions in neighboring cultural, touristic, and creative industries. For example, we work closely with partners in music and theater in Dresden, including the Saxon State Opera and the Saxon State Orchestra. Such partnerships open up new possibilities for interpretation and presentation. A historical object or painting may inspire a musical performance or a stage production that brings together different artistic disciplines. These collaborations allow museums to reach audiences who might not otherwise visit an exhibition. At the same time, they create experiences that are memorable while being very close to the architectural artworks of the museums. This is the kind of spark we want to send out. The long history and enormous diversity of our collections represent both a historical responsibility and an impulse for the future that is inspiring us to collaborate with partners around the world in the research and preservation of our collections. The following example from our work illustrates this approach. A Korean folding screen from our collection required restoration. Instead of relying on the limited experience and knowledge in preservation and restoration of objects from abroad, we seek professional advice and cooperation with partners, particularly in East and Southeast Asia. For example, we carried out an 11-month restoration in Seoul with experts from the Jockey Conservation Studio. This partnership ensured that conservation decisions were informed by the best possible knowledge of materials, techniques, and historical context. Beyond the technical results, such collaborations also foster mutual learning and trust. They contribute to a global network of knowledge that benefits both institutions and audiences. The cooperation project with Korea followed in 2 exhibitions, one in Seoul and one in Dresden, 100 Ideas of Happiness, Art Treasures from Korea, also planned and conducted together with the National Museum of Korea, was a huge success in Baroque rooms of the Dresden Castle, with more than 86,000 people that came to visit in 5 months. I know these figures are not impressive in China, but they are in Dresden. Initiatives such as collaborative research projects, joint public programs, and also staff exchange strengthen the expertise of all partners involved. Conclusion. The future of museums will depend on their ability to connect tradition with innovation. In Dresden, that means building the future on historical grounds. Collections and research remain the foundation of our work, but the ways in which we share and activate this knowledge must continue to develop. By building strong partnerships and thinking creatively beyond disciplines, museums remain dynamic cultural actors in a rapidly changing world. The goal is to continue to inspire curiosity, understanding, and imagination for generations to come. Thank you very much. 谢谢你们。
好，谢谢艾伯特馆长的。
Thanks, Albert, for your excellent sharing. Next, we'd like to introduce Director Rabaté, and he is the Chief Executive and the Director, Kiran Nadar Museum of Art, India. And he just retired from the Louvre, Abu Dhabi. And he began his career at the Musée du Louvre, serving as the deputy director from 2002 to 2005. And during the period, he developed a new program for Islamic arts as part of the museum's first performance contract with the French government aimed at modernizing the museum. And in 2005, he joined the Musée du Quai Branly. And 1 year before its opening as Deputy Director of Cultural Development, he established the museum's administrative and financial structure before its opening. And also in 2009, he has the new director position. Without further ado, let's invite Mr. Rabaté.
Thank you so much, dear friends. I wanted to start by thanking absolutely warmly the WestK for inviting me, especially the Palace Museum and the M+ and all these colleagues. I actually started having a professional relationship with Hong Kong in 2018, having a speech with our colleagues from M+ before the opening. So it's only fitting that I'm coming back in the Palace. Dear Louis, I'm very pleased to be there. Due to the difficult situation in West Asia, I would also like to start this speech by my supporting thoughts to my former colleagues, but forever friends in the UAE and in all the region that we call West Asia through this difficult time. So when we started discussing this panel with Louis and George Ma, the question I opened on my change of career, the question was, should I keep the same point or not? I would argue that the most innovative and entrepreneur endeavor that we can have today is to open a museum. So I thought I would share at the same time what we did for the Louvre Abu Dhabi and a glimpse of what I'm going to do in India with the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art. So the case study of Louvre Abu Dhabi, recently opened. This is the place the museum is, before 2007, a real island, but not constructed yet. And this is the scheme which is coming to fruition. This morning, Mariette Westermann shows us the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi, which will be the last one to join the family of museums on this island. Louvre Abu Dhabi opened in 2017. Last year, we had the pleasure of welcoming Team Lab, the Natural History Museum, and the Zayed National Museum, who joined the family of museum integrated in the district, which is a Sadiat Cultural District. This is still a rendering, but the building exists. If we zoom on Louvre Abu Dhabi, the starting point of the entrepreneurship is actually very governmental because it is a treaty between France and Abu Dhabi that starts on structure, the relationship. I think for the Guggenheim you have a different kind of agreement, but there is this starting point, which is always the moment the project can be initiated. In our case, Louvre Abu Dhabi is the first universal museum in the Arab world, which means it's a recreation of the concept of the Universal Museum, the Museum of Curiosity, the Encyclopedic Museum, the museum bringing artworks, objects of beauty from all over the world. In our case, and this is a full project, so 10 years of project to come to fruition was, I think it's a little bit longer, Mariette, but whatever the duration, it's for the good cause. That was the opening, well expected. We wanted to showcase 4 elements that constitute a museum: a building, a content, a collection, but also a storytelling, a relationship to public, and definitely key to a success, a team. In the case of Louvre Abu Dhabi, the architect is Jean Nouvel, Pritzker Prize, absolutely genius French architect, with a contextualized architect, always taking inspiration from the territory he's working on. It's one of your neighbors, I think in Shanghai, you have the Pudong Museum. So Jean Nouvel is a man who's always working in the territory. And in the case of Louvre Abu Dhabi, he imagined this incredible canopy, which is a reminiscence of the Arab oasis and the way light can filter through this beautiful dome. And we had the pleasure to welcome the Pritzker Prize coming back for Liu Jokin, who received it under the dome of Louvre Abu Dhabi. The second way of receiving the Pritzker Prize is to host the Pritzker Prize itself. The second pillar is the collection, the content. Being in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the UAE, we had the opportunity to reinvent what a universal museum is. So we insisted on the connectivity, so it's a shared collection, a semi-permanent museography, always in evolution, and a global network. You start in this room and you actually, instead of separating by classification the artworks, we show what they have in common. So it's like a time machine. We start by question, universal question, maternity in this case, and we explore time, golden masks to go beyond death in our ritual. And then we take you through times, and in every room you see artworks from different places of the world, from different civilizations, which are connected by anthropological rules or aesthetic connection. And this is really like, I highlighted the few Chinese art elements that we have in the collection, but you would see these two Buddha heads from India to China in two statues. You can understand the kind of connection, that the kind of roots of art that I'm following. This is our tongue, so very big showcase connecting the world from China to Europe and through the Arab region. We are having access to the collection of the French museums. We have the collection of Louvre Abu Dhabi, which has been during this project, and we develop this kind of encounter from Guimet, from Orsay. We have this, and a program that you have developed, being a global museum, is this interconnection with global partners. This is a masterpiece of the Philippines, of the National Museum of the Philippines, that was an ambassador object from Juan Luna that was on loan, exceptional loan, which required some legal support to have that. And she's actually flirting with our Manet on the right. And this is a way for us to reconnect even the modern art of the world. We have a place, of course, for contemporary art, and the content is not only the things you see in the galleries, it's also the research, it's also the publication, it's also everything which is a legacy of the museum that is all around this narrative. Beyond this backbone, which is we call the permanent galleries, even if they're changing all the times due to loans and collaboration, we have a very active temporary exhibition program, which allows us to zoom in and to explore more. Currently, you have a beautiful exhibition on Picasso on the relationship to the figure, Picasso on the relationship to the Arab world. We also have a content through performing arts, through reflections, so anything that can allow us to play with our content is a way to showcase this universal approach that Louvre Abu Dhabi is all about. The third pillar would be the public, and to work with the public, we follow these rules of inclusivity, innovation, sustainability, cultural dialogue, and accessibility, which is a universal museum has to be accessible for everyone. So this is what we're trying to do. We managed to welcome 1.4 million visitors in 2 years in a row after COVID, which for the population of the UAE is proportionally quite impressive. We have structuration which varies, but you see that we have at the same time a very strong local base of resident, Emirati and international people calling Abu Dhabi home, but also touristic strengths and attractivity of the city. We were able to find the people on the street, so the ways to reach out. This was a very good project in which you would listen to the content through the radio when you were watching the artwork that was on display. I'm glad we share the same approach to aviation as a key partner to broadcast the museum. The experience, student education is absolutely key, and this is how we let children take over school, university, take over our museum. But we also go to the storytelling of the people themselves. They can use us, and they can tell stories in our galleries. We want art to be the linking point. Creativity has to be the shared point between us and our publics. The app is, and maybe we'll go back on innovation, but the app is for us a way to tackle the many languages which are spoken and needed in Abu Dhabi and in a very diverse public. We're also exploring virtual reality as a way to discover the collection in quite fun and, let's say, total immersive way. We're also conscious that we are part of the environment and that the museum, which is on the sea on every side, has to play a role in the sustainable approach that we can have. So this is we had a lagoon where turtles are some belonging to our visitors. Voilà, the boutique and the retail, this is also part of the business model, absolutely critical for us in the visitor experience and in the sustainability of the museum. We, to finish on the fourth pillar, which is absolutely key, the staff, the training, and that was part of the project of Louvre Abu Dhabi to create a new generation of Emirati professionals of museums by developing new skills and also transforming existing skills in the world of museums. And I think we have done quite a good job, and more than half of the staff is Emirati. Some of our alumni are already in the other museum of the UAE. So the museum as a project works also as a school museum, which continue, and you can see the last one of our last team meeting under the dome. But more personally, after 18 years working on the project, first from Paris and then from Abu Dhabi 12 years ago, then opening the museum 9 years ago, I had the pleasure of having a new challenge proposed to me, which is to open another mega infrastructure museum in Delhi. And when you're in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, the proximity with India makes actually a lot of sense because the Gulf and the subcontinent are actually extremely interconnected. So it's quite continuous. And you see that on the scale is the same. So from the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, to the Kiranadar Museum of Art, we're talking about roughly the same scale of 100,000 square meters. The KNMA 2.0, and this is a picture that a sneak picture that I took. It's more than a year ago, and the building is being in shape. I will not show you image of now, just to tease you to come. But the project is moving very quickly. This is a model. This is what Ajay Associates have created. This incredible museum, which is also rooted in the Indian culture, and you can see the jalis as one of the elements. She's the Kiran. She's the reason I joined. Fantastic person, my new boss, but also a great friend and a visionary collector who has created this absolute first-rank collection of South Asian art, and she has dreamed to share that with the public of India and the world. And this is why I was extremely proud to join her. We want, with the KNMA, we want to try to make art accessible in a place where less than 0.3% museum penetration. So we have a real game changer approach to do. We already have the good pillars, more than 16,000 artworks in this incredible collection, an educational team, subscribers. So we have all the elements, all the pillars are there to move, and the young visitor are key. And through these exceptional energy, we will use these 4 pillars from the building you saw, from the collection that you have had a glimpse from the team, which is already fantastic, which needs to double, triple maybe, and then to reach out to the public of New Delhi, of India, coming for the collection and also for performing art, because it will be part of the project. We will open very soon. So please join me in Delhi in a few months, in a few years. It will be a pleasure, and I'm sure there will be connection between West Kowloon and Delhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Rabaté. Please be seated. Please also allow us some time to set the scene for the panel discussion. When we first approached Mr. Rabaté for a 12-minute presentation, he said, "Oh, I would talk about this and that," and then he gave us a PowerPoint of 120 slides. And I'm sure he wanted to give us everything he had achieved in Abu Dhabi. And once again, for those of you who have not submitted your question, please do so by scanning the QR code displayed on screen. And all of our recording will be posted on our Summit's official website. And please stay tuned at our website for the recording if you want to take a look at the playback. And without further ado, may I now invite Mr. Lo Wei, Lo Yuanjiang, Qiang. And then also our speaker, Chu Guanjiang, Dr. Ebert, Mr. Rabaté onto stage. Thank you so much.
时间有限。
Time is limited. We only have 15 minutes, so let's hurry up. For 3 speakers, I will have 1 question to you each. So first is Mr. Chu. Just now, after your sharing, after being at your position for such a short time, you have a lot of innovative approach. So my question is, we are all working in museum industry in China, and we share similar problems. While pushing for innovation, of course, we need to balance a lot of problems. For example, we are pushing cultural exchange, doing it broadly as well as deeply. And at the same time, how do we preserve local culture? And for another example, while increasing the profitability or turnover of museum. At the same time, how do we stay true to our mission without sacrificing our public credibility? That means how to strike a balance between innovation and tradition. Thank you so much for the question. As I mentioned, Shanghai Museum, we need to have spatial expansion. That's more for publicity, to showcase the ideas and to showcase what we want to bring to the audience. The collections at Shanghai Museum is more about the Asian Chinese culture. But in the future, we are exploring new possibilities. For example, collectibles from all over the world. And at this time, we find we need new spaces for demonstration or exhibition. So how do we balance local versus international demonstration? We have a new hall, East Hall, and there we will showcase more in terms of traditional Chinese culture. And after the renovation of the old site, we will tell more about international story. So we have different positions for these 2 halls. In terms of content, we will have 2 curation brands. First is about China. And we will talk more about traditional Chinese culture, Chinese civilization. And second series is talking with the globe. It's more on the common or the shared civilization. So every year, we will have the China series as well as the international series. And for the audience, they also differ. So for one museum, that's how we balance international and local. And second question is the turnover versus our non-profit side. For most of the museums in China, they're state-owned. So the operation cash is mainly from the government. That might be different from museums in Europe or America. So for Chinese museums, the daily operation, we don't need to consider too much because we have huge support from the government. From the other angle, the Chinese audience are pursuing more on spiritual side. So for museum, we're facing new challenges. How can we satisfy the new needs or new requirements from the audience? We cannot just rely on the grants from our country. That's far from enough. So we must innovate. We must find new collaborations from the society. And we will also have some exploration in terms of creation and innovation. And maybe we hope we can bring some new streams of revenue. And we can have more high-quality exhibition or training or talent cultivation. In an ideal situation, we hope we can earn more money. And for the money earned, that's not just to pay our employees. We will have host more quality shows or exhibitions, and maybe we may have some free exhibitions to the public. And also from some overseas visitors, once you come to Shanghai Museum, it's free admission. And for some exhibitions with high cost, we will charge a certain fee, but that's very little money for overseas visitors. For Shanghai Museum, we always insist the nonprofit side. We try our very best to combine nonprofit and turnover. Thank you so much, Dr. Chu. As museum, indeed, you need to deal with all sorts of situations to make sure the sustainability. And second question is to Albert. As I mentioned, in 2018, we have collaborations, right? And back then, we know for SKD, it's a very large institution covering 20 institutions under the umbrella. So I can call it an ecosystem. For Palace Museum, we have a North Extension Museum. So we have one branch, two institutions, and we need to consider different exhibition positions, etc. So my question to Dr. Ebert, how can you balance all the institutions under your umbrella, be it independence or how to preserve each branch's unique strength? And under your guidance, how do you deal with their situations? For example, internal coordination, resources allocation. So please.
Much. I would like to go back to what Manuel just mentioned, the idea of the universal museum. I think the history of our collections, the roots, so to say, go back to the overall idea of a universal museum. And only later on were the collections separated into collections and even museums, museum buildings. So my idea is to have the different collections that came from, let's say, different disciplines, how we call it today, history of art, ethnography, decorative design, and so different fields, bring them back together under one theme that we will have for the forthcoming years, one theme each year. So for example, in 2029, we will concentrate on textile, costume, and fashion. And in another year, we will have another theme of art, nature, and science. And each institution will go on and continue with its own research and has its own project, like you just mentioned, different institutions. But then overall, we have one idea we will follow per year. And so the visitor can follow one theme and go through the collections, experience this one theme from different perspectives. So this is one approach to deal with an association of various institutions. And then you mentioned something like regulation or something, from management perspective from the director's office. So what we offer is basically at the Director General's office, various departments that you are familiar with, education, for example, science, and a department called digital transformation. And these departments are what I would call service departments for all the collections. So it's an advantage for them that we have one department centralized that has experience, has the knowledge, so experienced staff members that can coordinate projects and that can give advice for various museums. So this is an advantage for museums within an association of around 20 institutions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Albert. Yeah, that's very good advice. Thank you so much. And lastly, Mr. Rabaté, I can say you are a marvelous leader. So the Abu Dhabi Louvre project, you go from conception to execution and become a timeless museum where everybody loves going. So it's very similar to Hong Kong Palace Museum. Maybe our Mrs. Carrie Lam and other leaders and other colleagues present here, we feel the same. We see this project, Hong Kong Palace Museum, from 0 to 1. And I'm very happy to see you are on your next adventure, the Karan Nadar Museum in India. Very excited to see your second baby. And as you just introduced, GCC and India share a lot of history. But no matter its culture, language, or operating history, there's still differences. So how can you realize the conversion? How do you adapt to Indian culture? Also, in terms of your leadership, under transformation, do you have any advice to museums innovation under diverse culture? Do you have anything to share?
Thank you so much for your kind words. I think we can go back again to the universal, in the sense a museum is a place of curiosity and beauty. And I think this is universal beyond the language, beyond, I can be moved by a very Chinese artworks, and an Indian can be moved by a painting by Leonardo, and this access to beauty is what we share, and this is what we try to show in Louvre Abu Dhabi, that there are this moment of creation, this moment of encounters, this concept that we share and we can all relate through the experience of beauty, of sublime, of curiosity, sometimes of, it can be fear, it can be reaction, but we share that. So I think the material of a museum allows us to create this common language. At the first level of my answer. The second will be more operational, and especially because we are in the innovative panel, I think that technology, AI, and the multiplication of the tools can help bridge even more the solution for the language. And I show very quickly our app. We have 8 languages which have been developed, which is consistent with the population visiting Louvre Abu Dhabi. So 8 Mandarin and Hindi being one of them, for instance, English. So 8 of them allows us, Arabic definitely, based on the public. Each one is a huge, each time we added one new language, it was a fantastic work for the team. We know that with AI, we will be able to leverage, we need to put some quality processes in. But I don't see AI as a filter between the artwork and the visitors. I see it as a way to amplify these tools of knowledge and understanding, and while keeping your own identity, your own language, you will be able to be spoken in your language. You will be able to decide what kind of interaction you want. On this kind of exploration, we have quite a few in the pipe in Abu Dhabi, and I know my colleagues will deliver something very innovative. They're already pushing the system, and it will definitely be embedded in what we do for the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art. It's you have so many languages, even within India. So we need to find a way to make sure that everyone is welcome. So I think one of the place to make the museum inclusive and accessible is definitely to find technical ways to speak to the language of people from a universal human approach, but also very concretely in your own day-to-day language.
Thank you very much, and wish your new museum a great success. We have 1 more minute. Any questions from the floor? Don't waste this 1 minute. Please go ahead. Okay, you only have 15 seconds.
Word about the real-world tokenization, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. And they were seeing culture is entering into the next phase of the RWA, so to connect the culture and the crypto world. So I don't know what's your guys' take on that.
So it's about the digital arts.
Real-world asset tokenization, real-world asset tokenization. So it's a new concept in the crypto blockchain industry. It's about you tokenize the real-world assets such as real estate, hospitality, and a lot of countries, nations in the world, for example, like UAE is doing something in that. So I don't know if that has entered into the museum world. So to think about the tokenized intellectual property asset.
There are many ways to
use
technology and to see there is, when you say tokenization, one part is on the financial and business model, because there is a business model attached to that. But it's also circuits of certification, trackability. I think the museum world is integrating it at its space, because these are new technology, and you need to find the real museums are not a commercial space. They have commercial spaces, but they are not. The galleries are more efficient on the business model for that. And I would say, if we go back to what we have in Louvre Abu Dhabi and what we are trying to see in Kiran Nadar, a Museum of Art, when we go back to the long history, is that the evolution of the form of representation of art through times, we can see the coins were first multiplication of image, book printing, image, woodblock print were another way of photography, cinema. Every time in history there has been a technology that had an impact on the representation of the image, on the dissemination. The system of art moved. We don't know yet what will be the changes of this new token, NFT, representation digital. It is definitely happening, but I'm not sure the cycle is finished to see what will be the impact on the museum core.
我想大部分博物馆可能会审视。
And we think all museums will research on it and have a very active attitude towards it.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again to all of our speakers today. And let's give them another warm round of applause. And may our speaker come back onto the floor. They have a seat. We now have reached the conclusions of the Hong Kong International Cultural Summit 2026. We have had the privilege of engaging in inspiring conversation and meaningful exchanges with cultural leaders and practitioners from all around the world. We hope that the ideas shared and the connection made during the summit will continue to inspire collaboration and innovation in the global cultural community. Thank you for joining us at the Hong Kong Palace Museum and also online. Thank you again for being part of the summit. We shall see you next time.